Hello everybody at the LWR and welcome back to the Landscapes series. This is Landscapes number 9 and it's called Beyond Cropping. You know, what do you do when you frame up a shot in the field and you get back to your computer and look at it and think, oh, I framed that really badly. The center of interest is not where it really belongs in the frame. Well, we're going to talk about that today, so let's get started. Okay, so we're over in Photoshop and these three great white pelicans were in a pretty stiff wind and it was a cold day, and I must have been in a hurry or something because I didn't frame these things correctly, from my eye anyway. I can see there's some compositional changes I want to make, and we're going to use the crop tool today to do that, but we're going to use the crop tool in a way that perhaps some of you hadn't seen before. We're going to use it for two different purposes. So let me go ahead and do that. First thing I'll do is just do a traditional crop using the crop tool. You can click on this up here or click C on a Mac to add your crop tool in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the frame up a little bit. I'm going to bring these birds kind of more towards the center of the frame, and I'm going to crop in a little bit on this side. And the reason I'm doing that on the back side because I need a little bit more space out here visually. Usually when animals are looking a direction, running or flying, you want to leave a little space into the direction they're flying or looking. That's kind of a nice rule of thumb to remember. I actually learned that running a television camera one time. As a person is walking on stage, you should give them a little space in front to walk into. Okay, so you can see here what I'm doing is I'm adding frame that wasn't there. Now this is a little bit different for some of you folks. The crop tool will enable you to do this also, and there's a key to it, a trick to it. So I'm going to add a little space on top as well, about equidistant from what I took off the bottom. And the key is to make sure that this little button right here is checked. That's not checked, but I want to make sure that it's checked. It's black, it's highlighted. That's a content aware button that adds content aware capability to the crop tool. Okay, so we're actually going to add frame here using content aware. So let's see how it all works out. Okay, I like that a lot better. You can see if I go to the beginning, this was the beginning, and this is with a different crop. And all we used was the crop tool. And I have a little bit of lightness up here I probably would correct. But you can see what a difference that makes just in repositioning the birds more towards the center, giving a little bit more space out here for the front bird. This is where we started, and this is where we are now. So it added, I think, a lot of just a lot better composition to the look. Okay, so we'll go on to photo number 2. Okay, this is shot number 2 of the rod and reel pier with the full moon. And the moon comes up, the full moons come up in the east, and when they're full like that, they come up just about the same time as the sun is setting to the west. So you get this beautiful blue hour light, makes the exposure a lot easier on these rising moons. Anyway, I like the soft water. I use a little slower exposure, so I got kind of these white stripes coming down from the water moving, which I always seem to like that. That's between a 6.5 second shutter speed is wonderful for water. But I didn't like the fact that this was running right through the middle of my photo. It's kind of in the bullseye. It cuts the photo in half. It just, that part didn't appeal to me when I saw it on the computer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the crop tool once more, plus another tool, to make this photo better as far as the positioning of the rod and reel pier, the center of interest. Okay, so I'm going to hit C for crop. And what I want to do is I want to add a little bit more on the bottom down here. And again, remember, because this is sand and it's fairly consistent in pattern, it's easy for the content aware fill to fill this in down here. Okay, I'm going to pull this guy down a little bit because it's a little bit less important, I think, on top there. I'm getting the rod and reel pier more kind of towards rule of thirds, which is really kind of a good idea, I think, in this case, because the moon is sort of a primary or secondary subject, and you want it to be up here in a place where if you got these intersection of points, ideally, many times. Okay, so I'm cropping here, and I'm adding down here again with the crop tool, same as we did before. I'm going to make sure this is checked in black, and I'm going to hit the check key to see how this computer works this out. Many times it works perfectly. Sometimes you've got to make some adjustments after the fact, but many times, especially when you have sky like this and sand like this with a repeating kind of consistent pattern, it's a pretty easy and looks like it nailed it. So isn't that fun? Don't have to do a whole lot more. All right, so I'll show you the before and after. This is before, okay, and this is after. Okay, so it's up here in the rule of thirds, much better, I think. But then I thought to myself, you know, this moon, unfortunately, when you shoot it with a wide, it's not all that impressive, even though it's a big full moon. So I want to make this a little more impressive. I want the rod and reel to come forward a little more too. So I'm going to use another tool in addition to the crop tool. I'm going to use the scaling tool, and the way I do that is I come up here to a rectangular marquee, and I just draw a box around it, selects the whole frame, or you can hit Command A, I believe also, it selects the whole thing. And when you hit Command T on a Mac, or Alt key on a PC, it gives you these points. And on these points, you can pull on these points in two different ways. If you pull them one way, it just pulls on everything, makes everything larger. Or you can hold the Shift key down and pull, and it just pulls in that one dimension, which kind of makes the pier wider, and it makes the moon kind of oblong. So that's not really a good choice on that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use these two corner tools here to scale the rod and reel pier and the moon larger in the frame. I'm trying to keep it up on the rule of thirds, but I'm just going to keep pulling on these until I get it to a place that I'm happy. And actually that looks pretty good right about there. Okay, so I'm going to hit the check up here, and we'll get the final look. And at that point, I'm going to go back and compare it with the original. Okay, so this is where we started. It had a little funky color cast going on here that's been taken care of, but this is where we ended up right here. So again, this is before, and this is after. Okay, you can see it added a lot more pop. We can do that one more time. So this is where we started, okay, with the little tiny moon and this thing cutting the frame in half, and we move to this position with it up on the rule of thirds, moon is a little bit larger, and so forth. Okay, so that's shot number 2. Let's go to shot number 3 and we'll finish this up. Okay, so this is shot number 3, shot out at Circle B Bar Preserve in this past week. And I noticed when I saw this on the computer after the fact that I had a couple different issues going on. He's a little close back here to the edge of the frame. This bird is moving, and so it was tough to compose in the field anyway. And then I have all this Spanish moss hanging down. It's kind of, this bothers me to have this out of focus Spanish moss hanging down. So I've got a couple issues going on here. We're going to use the crop tool again, as well as the scale tool, to solve these two problems that I just mentioned. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit the crop tool. And the first thing we'll do is we'll take the frame out, give it a little bit more space here on the side, so the bird has got a little room behind him. Don't like to get too close to the edge of the frame, and I'll pull it in about the same amount on the other side. I'd say maybe right about in there would work. Pull that back just a little bit. I like to kind of keep these two the same. We're adding here and we're taking away here. If you keep them about the same, you don't have to worry about your aspect ratio getting out of whack. Okay, so I kind of like that. Make sure that this is checked to get the content aware fill working behind the bird, and let's go ahead and check it, and let's see what happens. Now the second issue, while this is calculating, the second issue that I have in this picture is this this yellow grass over here is getting my attention a little bit more than I like it. So because I've got this horizontal limb stretching out here, I actually have a little bit more of this blurry moss over here. It filled this in nicely back here. There's very little cleanup I have to do down here. And then I'm going to do a marquee tool box right up to the end of the bill on this bird. Okay, so we're not going to affect the bird at all. And then I'll hit Command T one more time for the scale tool. And I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to pull this grass out of the frame. Okay, this is nice when you have stuff on your border. You're doing border control and you want to get rid of some stuff. It's kind of a nuisance for you. It's kind of a bother visually. You can pull stuff right out of the frame, and without hurting the actual picture too much. Okay, so I sort of like that, and I think I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to hit the check key up top and hit Command D to deselect the selection, and then I'm going to show you before and after. Okay, so this is where we started with the bird. He's backed up against frame right here, and we got all this stuff going on visually here to the left, so we were trying to get rid of that, and this is what we end up with, which I think is far better. I probably would come in with the healing brush tool, and I probably would take this stuff out too, just because I just think it's kind of in the way. I might just get rid of that. Just see if that cleans up the photo in a way that I like. If not, I can always hit Command Z to back up. Clean up that down there. And I might also take this one out, just because I just think they're just on the edge of the frame. They're kind of eyesores, and they're bothering me, so I probably will get rid of those two things. I have to go over it twice, looks like. Maybe 3 times on this one. Okay, I think that helps a lot. So let me do before and after one more time, and then we'll finish up this tutorial for today. So we'll go back to the first one. Again, too close to the frame. He's walking into this area, but I need a little room back here. And this is bothering me, all this clutter over here. So we're going to go out to this, and you can see just how much it cleaned up the frame, how much more easy it is to look at the bird as the center of interest. So that's the crop tool as well as the scale tool today. I hope these tools will be handy for you. I usually do this right up front in my workflow. I get the composition the way I like it. I use the warping, scaling, crop tools to get my center of interest where I want it, and from there I start working with colors, contrast, and atmosphere. So I hope that's been helpful today. Thanks so much for tuning in again, and we'll look forward to the next one. Have a great one. Bye.